When most people think of royal mansions, they picture glittering chandeliers, endless lawns, and rooms filled with priceless paintings. But few homes in Britain carry as much mystery and controversy as Royal Lodge, a grand yet troubled estate sitting quietly inside Windsor Great Park. Its story isn't just about fine architecture or royal luxury. It's about power, family struggles, money, and secrets. The kind of secrets that still make people whisper and wonder. What's really going on behind those gates? Imagine a house worth around $30 million, built on nearly 100 acres of some of the most valuable land in all of England. Now imagine that same mansion costing $4 to $5 million every year just to keep it standing, to fix the leaking roofs, repaint the cracked walls, and keep the sprawling gardens alive. For most people, that amount is impossible to imagine. But for Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, this isn't just a number. It's his reality. And his biggest problem. Because even though Prince Andrew's official royal income was cut off years ago, the bills for Royal Lodge somehow keep getting paid. It's one of the most expensive mysteries in modern British history. A house where mold creeps through the walls as quietly as the rumors about where the money comes from. To understand how this once great home turned into a royal headache, we have to step back into the world of Windsor, of family pride, and of a royal past that refuses to fade away. A grand home in decline. From the outside, Royal Lodge looks like a dream. It stands proudly within Windsor Great Park, only 3 miles from Windsor Castle, where generations of British monarchs have ruled. The main mansion follows the Georgian style, a tall central block with 2 smaller wings, perfectly balanced and symmetrical. It's a design meant to impress, to signal power wrapped in beauty. But when you get closer, the illusion starts to crack, literally. The paint peels, the walls have splits running down their length, and a musty smell fills rooms that were once filled with laughter and royal parties. Engineers say the structure itself is shocking, parts of it almost impossible to save without millions in repairs. Yet, for all its problems, Prince Andrew refuses to leave. Inside its 7 bedrooms, the Duke still lives with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. Yes, even though they divorced in 1996, nearly 30 years ago, they still share the same home. To outsiders, it's one of the strangest royal arrangements ever. To insiders, it's part of the mystery. Why won't they move out? Is it comfort, stubbornness, or strategy? Every detail of this decaying mansion tells a story of love, loss, and the price of royal privilege. From dairy farm to royal mansion. To understand the present, we have to go back to the beginning, when this royal estate wasn't royal at all. In the 1600s, the land that would one day hold Royal Lodge was just a quiet dairy farm, known as Watkins House. It was surrounded by rolling meadows and tall trees, and cows graze peacefully where guards with rifles now patrol. In 1750, the property was home to Thomas Sandby, a gifted artist, architect, and mapmaker. Sandby was talented, but he wasn't interested in wealth or luxury. Still, his artistic eye gave the simple farmhouse a touch of charm, the first spark of elegance in a place that would one day become a royal residence. Then came 1812, the year everything changed. George, Prince of Wales, who would later become King George IV, needed somewhere to stay while Cumberland Lodge nearby was being rebuilt. So the future king temporarily moved into this humble farmhouse. Of course, when a royal moves in, nothing stays humble for long. Enter John Nash, one of Britain's most celebrated architects, the same man behind the grand designs of Regent's Park and Buckingham Palace. Nash was a visionary. He believed architecture could tell a story. And for the Prince of Wales, he turned the simple farmhouse into something almost magical. Nash gave the house a romantic fairy tale appearance, with charming thatched roofs, elegant verandas, and soft, natural colors that blended into the countryside. It was meant to look like a cozy cottage, but in truth, it was a luxurious royal hideaway. The design fit perfectly with the spirit of the early 19th century, a time when the British elite loved the idea of rural simplicity, as long as it came with comfort and servants. Royal Lodge became the definition of country chic, the place where royalty could pretend to live simply while still surrounded by wealth. The chapel in the Clash of Kings. In 1825, architect Geoffrey Wyatville added a small but elegant church to the property, the Royal Chapel of All Saints. He claimed it was unavoidable, since the royal household needed its own place of worship. The chapel still stands today, tucked quietly among the trees. Over the centuries, it has witnessed births, weddings, and funerals, moments of joy and grief that shaped the royal family. But back in the 1800s, it also sparked one of the first big debates about the cost of royal living. When King William IV took the throne in 1830, he was furious about how much money his predecessor had spent, turning a farmhouse into a miniature palace. He thought the whole thing was wasteful and unnecessary. So, in an act of royal rage, he ordered most of Nash's design to be demolished, sparing only the conservatory. After that, Royal Lodge was rebuilt again, this time in the more formal Georgian style that defines it today. It was elegant, balanced, and far less romantic than Nash's cottage vision. Ironically, the mansion's pattern of being built, demolished, and rebuilt would continue throughout its life. It was a house that never stopped demanding more money, more attention, more care. A family home for the future queen. By the early 1900s, Royal Lodge had become more than just another royal property. It was about to become a home filled with family, laughter, and the future of the monarchy itself. In 1931, King George V gifted the estate to his son, Prince Albert, the Duke of York, and his wife, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. They were overjoyed. It gave them a chance to build a life away from the constant formality of London. Here, they could raise their two daughters, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, in peace. Working with architect Sir Eric Saville, they renovated and expanded the mansion, creating beautiful gardens that reflected Elizabeth's love of nature. Soon, Royal Lodge wasn't just a residence. It was a living, breathing home for Princess Elizabeth, who would one day become Queen Elizabeth II. Childhood at Royal Lodge was filled with warmth and wonder. She and Princess Margaret spent hours exploring the gardens, playing with their dogs, and riding ponies across Windsor Great Park. While Windsor Castle stood nearby as a symbol of power and duty, Royal Lodge was something softer, a place where the royal family could laugh, relax, and simply be together. Those early days left a mark on Queen Elizabeth II that lasted her entire life. Whenever she spoke of Windsor, it was with a tone of affection, because for her, this park and this home were the heart of her childhood. Royal Lodge. During the war, the 1930s peace didn't last. When World War II broke out in 1939, the royal family, like the rest of the nation, faced dark and uncertain days. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, as the Duke and Duchess of York were now known, often stayed at Windsor Castle for safety, but Royal Lodge remained an important refuge. It became a place of calm when the outside world was filled with chaos. The young princesses studied, played, and even rehearsed their first radio speeches here, while bombs fell over London. For the king and queen, the estate represented strength and resilience. It was proof that even in wartime, the royal family would endure and stay close to their people. Behind its ivy-covered walls, Royal Lodge became a quiet symbol of hope, the Queen Mother's beloved home. When King George VI died unexpectedly in 1952, the world mourned, and Queen Elizabeth, their daughter, became the new monarch. But for her mother, now known as the Queen Mother, life changed in a different way. She made Royal Lodge her permanent home, turning it into a sanctuary of memory and love. For the next 50 years, she would live there, the longest any royal has ever called it home. Under her care, Royal Lodge came alive again. The gardens flourished with roses and wildflowers, the rooms glowed with warmth, and guests from around the world came to enjoy her legendary hospitality. Politicians, artists, and close friends were invited to tea parties, picnics, and dinners, where laughter often filled the halls. The Queen Mother's spirit gave the house a kind of magic. It was both elegant and comforting, royal yet homely. Her grandchildren, including Prince Charles, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, and Prince Edward, all spent time there. To them, it was a place of childhood joy, a home where rules were softer, and where their grandmother's gentle kindness made everyone feel safe. During this golden period, Royal Lodge wasn't just a royal home. It was the beating heart of a family, the fall of a mansion. Prince Andrew, money, and scandal. When the Queen Mother passed away in 2002, the world mourned the loss of one of Britain's most beloved royals. She had lived a long and remarkable life, full of charm, strength, and grace. But her death also left behind a question. What would happen to her cherished home, Royal Lodge? For 50 years it had been her sanctuary. Every corner of the mansion carried her touch. The furniture, the paintings, the gardens she had personally helped design. For many, Royal Lodge wasn't just property. It was a living piece of her story. But now, it stood empty, waiting for its next chapter. Prince Andrew's lease. That next chapter began in 2003, when Prince Andrew, the Queen Mother's grandson and the second son of Queen Elizabeth II, was granted a 75-year lease on Royal Lodge. At first, the deal seemed fair. The Duke of York paid $1 million up front, plus agreed to spend $7.5 million on repairs and renovations. For a home that had seen decades of aging, it was a necessary investment. The deal meant Andrew could live there for most of his life, and even beyond, as long as he maintained the property. To many in the public, this sounded like a royal success story. Here was a prince stepping up to take care of a historic home, continuing his grandmother's legacy. Newspapers even praised him for preserving the Queen Mother's memory. But the truth was more complicated, and much darker. Behind the beautiful gates and tidy lawns, problems were already beginning to grow. The cost of maintaining the house was enormous. The roof leaked, the foundations needed repairs, and the once perfect gardens were slipping into wild disorder. It wasn't long before the costs spiraled far beyond what anyone expected. Experts estimated that keeping Royal Lodge in good shape would cost $4 to $5 million each year, a shocking figure, even for royalty. The mystery of the money. Soon, people began asking a question that has never been fully answered. Where was all this money coming from? After all, Prince Andrew's official royal allowance had been cut. He was no longer a working royal, and therefore, he no longer received the same public funding as before. Yet somehow, the mansion staff were still being paid. Repairs continued. The security guards were still there. The lawns were still trimmed. The lights at Royal Lodge stayed on. Some suspected that Andrew was using his savings. Others believed money might have come from private deals or business connections that were never made public. Then came an even more controversial theory, that funds were linked to foreign businessmen who had once been close to him. One case stood out. Prince Andrew's former home, Sunninghill Park, had been sold in 2007 to Timur Kulibayev, a Kazakh billionaire and the son-in-law of Kazakhstan's president. The sale raised eyebrows immediately because it went for $3 million above the asking price, an unusually generous amount. To this day, no one fully understands why that deal happened or why the buyer paid so much. For critics, it was just one more clue in the growing mystery of Royal Lodge's secret finances. Sarah Ferguson returns. In 2008, another twist added to the story. Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew's ex-wife, moved back into Royal Lodge. Even though they divorced in 1996, she returned to live with him under the same roof. Her own home, Drumlin House, had been damaged by fire, and Royal Lodge became her refuge. At first, many assumed it was temporary, but as months turned into years, it became clear that this was a permanent arrangement. The world was fascinated. The tabloids had a field day with headlines like, "The Duke and his Duchess together again?" But there was no romantic reunion, at least not officially. Instead, they described themselves as best friends and co-parents to their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Still, it raised a simple question. Why live together after divorce? Some royal experts said it was emotional, that they had remained close and supportive of each other. Others believed it was financial. Sharing the house might have made it easier to manage costs. But a few saw a deeper motive, that Sarah's presence helped Andrew strengthen his claim to the property, making it even harder for anyone to push him out. Whatever the truth, the arrangement only deepened the sense of mystery surrounding the mansion. Behind its crumbling walls, Royal Lodge had become both a home and a fortress. A house in trouble. While the Duke and Duchess carried on with their unusual living situation, the mansion itself was falling apart. The The grand drawing room, once filled with laughter during the Queen Mother's famous parties, now looked tired and worn. The ceilings had cracks wide enough for engineers to worry, paint peeled from the walls, revealing old plaster beneath. In some rooms, black mold crept slowly along the corners, a dark symbol of neglect. The gardens, once the pride of the Queen Mother, became wild and overgrown. Weeds choked the flower beds and moss covered the statues that had once gleamed in the sun. Landscape historians described it as shocking, even impossible to rescue without major investment. What was once a paradise had become a ghost of its former beauty. Even the Royal Chapel of All Saints, standing nearby since 1825, couldn't escape the feeling of decline. The whole estate seemed to be aging faster than ever, as if reflecting the troubles of the family living inside. A king's displeasure. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away in 2022, her eldest son became King Charles III. From the start, King Charles made it clear that he wanted to reshape the monarchy. His plan was to create what he called a slimmed-down monarchy, a smaller, more modern royal family that would cost less and appear more in touch with ordinary citizens. That meant fewer working royals and less financial waste. For Prince Andrew, this was bad news. His royal duties had already ended years earlier after scandals damaged his reputation. Now, his royal allowance, roughly $1 million per year, plus $3 million for security, was being cut entirely. King Charles wanted him to move into a smaller property, such as Frogmore Cottage, the former home of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But Andrew refused. His 75-year lease on Royal Lodge gave him the legal right to stay until 2078. And he was determined to hold his ground. The result was what the media called the Siege of Royal Lodge. Behind palace doors, tensions grew. On one side stood the king, trying to protect the image of the monarchy. On the other stood his brother, refusing to give up the estate he saw as his rightful home. The legal battle no one wanted. The situation was more than just a family argument. It was a legal nightmare. Because of the lease, King Charles III couldn't simply evict Prince Andrew. The only way to force him out would be if he failed to maintain the property properly, breaking the terms of the lease. And so began a quiet but fierce power struggle. The king's advisors started hinting publicly that Royal Lodge was falling apart, hoping to pressure Andrew to leave voluntarily. Royal sources told the press that the mansion's declining condition could become a serious concern. At the same time, Andrew's supporters insisted he was fulfilling his responsibilities, keeping the property in acceptable shape. But the cracks, both literal and symbolic, continued to grow. Behind every news headline, the same question echoed: how long can this go on? The Queen's Corgis. In the middle of all this drama, Prince Andrew made one move that softened public opinion, at least a little. After Queen Elizabeth II's death, he became caretaker of her two beloved corgis, Muek and Sandy. The dogs now live with him at Royal Lodge, playing on the same lawns their late owner once walked on daily. To some, this seemed touching, a son keeping his mother's pets safe in her memory. But to others, it was a clever emotional strategy. Evicting Andrew from Royal Lodge would also mean uprooting the Queen's dogs, a decision few would want to make, whether sentimental or strategic. It gave the Duke another reason to stay put: family ties and public judgment. For Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, the situation is painful. They grew up at Royal Lodge. It's where they learned to ride bikes, celebrated birthdays, and spent family holidays with their grandmother. To them, the mansion isn't just a royal estate, it's home. They've both tried to stay out of the controversy, but they've also defended their father, describing him as a loving parent and insisting that he deserves peace. Yet, public opinion is divided. To some, Prince Andrew is a man clinging to privilege he no longer deserves. To others, he's a royal outcast, unfairly treated by a system that once adored him. Inside the palace, the standoff continues. Outside, the British public watches, fascinated, frustrated, and curious about what will happen next. A symbol of a struggling monarchy. Today, Royal Lodge is more than a decaying mansion. It's a symbol. Its cracked walls and unkept gardens reflect a royal family struggling to adapt to modern expectations. In a world that demands transparency and accountability, the idea of a disgraced prince living in a taxpayer-linked mansion worth tens of millions feels outdated and uncomfortable. Even so, Prince Andrew remains inside, behind those heavy gates and guarded fences, surrounded by memories of better times. Every day, King Charles III can see the estate from Windsor Castle, just 3 miles away, a constant reminder of his brother's defiance. For now, the stalemate continues. Royal Lodge stands silent and stubborn, its windows dark at night, its history heavy with whispers. But one question remains: how long can a house so filled with secrets, money, and royal pride survive before it collapses under its own weight? The clock is ticking. Time, like the weather, is slowly eroding Royal Lodge. Rainwater continues to seep into the bricks. Windows rattle in their frames. The once grand entrance now feels more like a shadow of the past than a welcome to the future. But Prince Andrew seems unmoved. He's still there, walking his dogs, reading newspapers, and waving to security guards, as though the outside world no longer exists. Behind the calm exterior, though, the pressure is building. Royal insiders say King Charles has discussed the matter repeatedly with advisors. They explore options, legal, financial, and even personal, to resolve the standoff. But each time, they come to the same conclusion. As long as the lease stands, their hands are tied. The future of Royal Lodge now depends not on laws or repairs, but on time itself. Will the Duke's finances run out? Will the structure collapse? Or will the King's patience finally break? No one knows, but the longer the silence lasts, the louder the questions grow. Royal Lodge and the modern monarchy. Secrets, symbolism, and scandal. From above, Royal Lodge still looks majestic. A cream-colored mansion nestled between ancient oaks, its wide lawns glowing green under the English sun. But from the ground, it feels different. The walls tell stories, not just of kings and queens, but of secrets, stubbornness, and a royal family at war with time itself. A mansion. Under a microscope. In the old days, royal homes were private worlds. No one outside the palace knew what happened within their walls. But in today's world of smartphones, drones, and social media, nothing stays hidden. Every renovation, every rumor, and every leak from Royal Lodge becomes a headline by morning. For King Charles III, this is a nightmare. He knows that in the 21st century, reputation is everything. The British public wants the monarchy to feel responsible, modern, and open, not secretive and entitled. Yeah, so when newspapers publish photos of peeling paint and sagging roofs at Royal Lodge, paired with stories of millions mysteriously being spent, it feels like an insult to everything he's trying to build. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew treats the mansion as his personal fortress. To him, Royal Lodge is not a symbol of scandal, but of loyalty, a piece of his mother's world that he refuses to surrender. In his mind, giving it up would mean giving up part of Queen Elizabeth II's legacy, and part of himself, the brother versus brother. Tension. Behind palace walls, the relationship between King Charles and Prince Andrew is said to be distant and tense. The brothers once shared a warm bond, laughing together at family gatherings. But as the years passed, their paths diverged, Charles stepping into duty and destiny, Andrew stepping into controversy. Insiders say the king has offered gentle warnings. He's explained that public perception matters, that every photograph of Royal Lodge sends the wrong message to taxpayers who struggle to afford homes of their own. But Andrew, ever proud, pushes back. He reminds everyone that he paid for his lease legally, that he spent millions restoring the house, and that he has every right to stay. To him, this isn't just about property. It's about dignity, about not being erased. Some royal observers compare the feud to a chess match. Both men are bound by rules, the king's authority versus the duke's contract. Neither can make the winning move without risking public backlash. So the game drags on year after year, while the mansion decays like a monument to their standoff. The public perception crisis. The British press has not been kind. Headlines often call Royal Lodge Britain's most expensive mystery, or the house that won't be fixed. Television specials have shown images of the estate's crumbling walls next to graphics of its staggering upkeep costs. Social media users comment with disbelief that one house could swallow so much money while hospitals and schools face cuts. Every scandal involving Prince Andrew, from his controversial friendships to his withdrawal from public duties, feeds the same perception that Royal Lodge is a symbol of privilege out of control. For critics of the monarchy, it has become an easy target, proof that the royal system still protects its own, even when the world demands accountability. Inside the family, this pressure is felt deeply. King Charles III is said to be frustrated that no matter how much he modernizes other parts of the monarchy, stories about Royal Lodge always pull the institution back into the past. Echoes of history, a house that always costs too much. Ironically, this isn't the first time Royal Lodge has been accused of being too expensive. From the days of John Nash's 1812 redesign, the estate has had a reputation for draining royal finances. Each new generation has poured money into it, hoping to make it perfect, only to discover that the house always demands more. King William IV once called the early renovations a foolish waste. A century later, critics complained when public funds helped repair it for the Queen Mother. Now, history repeats itself once again with Prince Andrew. The names change, but the argument remains the same. How much is too much for tradition? Perhaps that is the curse of Royal Lodge, a place built not just of stone, but of royal pride. Every attempt to save it turns into a mirror reflecting the monarchy's ongoing struggle between image and identity. Inside the overgrown gardens, walk through the once famous gardens today, and you can still sense their former beauty. Wild roses twist around iron gates, old fountains whisper under layers of moss. Here and there, faded stone statues peek out from the ivy, as if remembering the laughter of children who played there long ago. These gardens were the pride of the Queen Mother. She spent decades tending them, planting flowers to bloom in every season. She knew the gardeners by name and often walked with them at dawn, discussing which roses had survived the frost. Under her care, Royal Lodge felt alive, a perfect blend of nature and nobility. Now, the overgrowth feels symbolic. It mirrors the state of the house itself, something once glorious, now fading. Even the most romantic corners of the estate seem haunted by time. To visitors, it feels as if the past is trying to speak, reminding everyone that beauty without care cannot survive forever. The business of royal property. To understand why the situation at Royal Lodge matters so much, it helps to understand how royal properties actually work. Most are not owned personally by the royals, but by the Crown Estate, a vast organization that manages billions of pounds in land and buildings for the country. When a royal lives in one of these homes, they usually do so under a lease or as part of their official duties. That means the rules are strict. The person leasing the property, in this case Prince Andrew, must keep it in good condition. If the house falls into serious disrepair, the Crown Estate could technically reclaim it. This gives King Charles an indirect advantage. If the Duke cannot afford repairs, he risks losing the home altogether. This delicate balance of law and family loyalty makes the Royal Lodge saga even more dramatic. It's not just a private argument between brothers. It's also a legal puzzle involving contracts, money, and national property. The monarchy in the modern age. As Britain changes, so too must its monarchy. Younger generations, raised in the digital era, view the royal family differently than before. They want openness, responsibility, and proof that the royals live by the same rules as everyone else. For them, stories like Royal Lodge feel outdated, a reminder of privilege that no longer fits a modern world. Polls show that public support for the monarchy remains strong, but it is not guaranteed. Every new scandal, every unanswered question chips away at trust. Even people who love the royal family find it hard to defend a situation where millions vanish into an old house that most will never see. That is why King Charles III feels urgency. He knows his reign will be judged not just by ceremonies or speeches, but by actions, by whether he can make the monarchy seem fair, responsible, and worth keeping. And as long as Royal Lodge stands as a reminder of excess, that goal remains out of reach. A glimpse of compassion. Yet, amid the anger and politics, there are moments of quiet humanity. Those close to Prince Andrew say he feels deep sadness about how his life has changed. Once celebrated as a war hero and royal favorite, he now lives mostly in isolation. Sarah Ferguson, despite everything, remains loyal. She often speaks publicly about forgiveness and resilience, describing their shared home as a safe haven. Neighbors sometimes see her walking the Corgis or chatting with staff. She decorates the house for Christmas, hosting small family gatherings away from the cameras. Whatever the world thinks of them, inside those walls, there is still family, still small pockets of warmth. And perhaps that is why Royal Lodge continues to capture the public imagination. It's not just about scandal, it's about people, flawed, proud, emotional, trying to hold on to something that once defined them. The global spotlight. Internationally, Royal Lodge has become a fascination. Documentaries, tabloid exposés, and news articles around the world replay the same questions. Will Prince Andrew be forced out? Who pays for the repairs? What does this mean for the future of the monarchy? Every photograph taken through the iron gates, whether it's a gardener trimming weeds or a royal car leaving the driveway, feeds this endless story. Foreign audiences, especially in the United States, treat it like a real-life drama, full of mystery and family tension. For them, the British monarchy is part fairy tale, part soap opera, and Royal Lodge is one of its most intriguing sets. The weight of legacy. Sometimes history repeats itself, not because people forget, but because they can't let go. In many ways, Prince Andrew is trapped, not just by his lease, but by memory. He grew up in a world where royal privilege felt eternal, where castles and titles seemed unshakable. Now he lives in a time when everything, even royalty, is questioned. Royal Lodge reflects that shift. It stands between two worlds, the old and the new, the secretive and the transparent. Each cracked ceiling and faded portrait is a reminder that nothing lasts forever, not even the illusion of endless power. Still, there is something undeniably human about it. A man refusing to leave the home where his grandmother once smiled, where his daughters once played, where his mother's corgis now sleep by the fire. For all its controversy, Royal Lodge is also a story of attachment, of a person holding on to the last piece of a fading past. The choice ahead. As the years pass, the king's patience thins, and the repairs grow more urgent. Eventually, a choice will have to be made. Either Prince Andrew finds the money to save the house, or King Charles finds the courage to take it back. Royal insiders whisper that plans are being quietly drawn. Some suggest turning Royal Lodge into a public venue, perhaps a museum or luxury retreat that earns money for the crown estate. Others think it will eventually be given to another working royal, maybe Prince William or Princess Charlotte, decades from now. But no decision will be easy. Every option risks controversy. For now, the standoff continues, and the mansion waits, caught between memory and destiny. The fate of Royal Lodge. Will it stand or fall? The story of Royal Lodge isn't just about one man or one mansion. It's about the survival of a symbol, a battle between old traditions and new expectations. And as time marches on, the question becomes impossible to ignore. What will happen to this house that refuses to let go of its past? A legacy. On borrowed time, every brick of Royal Lodge holds a memory. The laughter of Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret echoes faintly in the gardens where they once played. The soft perfume of the Queen Mother's roses still lingers near the conservatory she loved so dearly. Even the old chapel bells, rusted and weathered, seem to hum with the ghosts of royal history. But memory doesn't pay bills, and nostalgia can't stop decay. Without constant care, the roof leaks, the wood rots, and the gardens slip further into wilderness. The mansion that once represented royal grace now teeters between beauty and ruin. Experts say that in just a few more decades, if nothing changes, Royal Lodge could be beyond repair. And with its 75-year lease ticking away, Prince Andrew may be the last royal to ever live there. The weight of money and reputation. For King Charles III, the question isn't just emotional, it's financial. He knows that every pound spent on Royal Lodge draws attention. In an age where British taxpayers want transparency, even the smallest royal expense becomes a headline. Critics argue that the monarchy should sell underused properties, cut costs, and prove that it deserves to exist in modern Britain. Supporters say that heritage can't be measured in money, that homes like Royal Lodge tell Britain's story and must be preserved. But preservation comes at a price, and with Prince Andrew no longer performing royal duties, his presence there feels increasingly awkward. To many Britons, he represents the old world, one of privilege without accountability. For King Charles, keeping his brother in that mansion risks damaging the very reputation he's trying to rebuild. So, the king faces an impossible choice: protect his family or protect the crown. A mansion of mixed meanings. Royal Lodge has become a paradox, a house loved and loathed at the same time. To royal historians, it's a priceless piece of heritage. To taxpayers, it's a burden. To the media, it's a mystery. And to Prince Andrew, it's home, the one place where he still feels like part of the royal world. Every window reflects those conflicting truths. The polished antiques inside remind visitors of royal elegance, while the cracked plaster above them whispers of decline. The lawns look peaceful from afar, but up close, they reveal patches of neglect, a perfect metaphor for the monarchy itself. This duality, beauty and decay, privilege and struggle, is what makes Royal Lodge so haunting. It's not just a building, it's a mirror, the uncertain future. Royal advisors have discussed many possible futures for Royal Lodge. One plan suggests turning it into a public residence or luxury retreat to fund its own upkeep. Another proposes moving a younger royal family member in someday, perhaps Prince William's children when they come of age. There's even talk of opening parts of the estate for public tours, like Frogmore House, to reconnect it with the people. But none of these ideas can happen while Prince Andrew remains under his lease. His contract protects him, legally, but not emotionally. Every year he stays, the tension with his brother grows stronger. And with the mansion's condition worsening, the king's patience may one day reach its limit. Sources inside the palace say quiet discussions have already begun about what could happen when the time comes. Whether that means a buyout, a court order, or a quiet family deal, no one yet knows. The house as a symbol of change. Throughout British history, great houses have risen and fallen, symbols of power that eventually gave way to modern times. Places like Harbour Hill, Hamilton Palace, and Mentmore Towers once represented wealth beyond imagination. But as fortunes faded, those estates were abandoned, demolished, or sold off to pay debts. Now, many wonder if Royal Lodge will suffer the same fate. The difference is that this isn't just a rich man's home, it's a royal one. Its fall would symbolize something greater, the end of an era where the monarchy could live apart from the people it served. Its survival, on the other hand, could prove that history can adapt, that tradition and progress can coexist. And so, Royal Lodge stands at a crossroads. Every vine creeping up its walls, every raindrop slipping through its roof, every argument whispered between two royal brothers. All are signs of a monarchy in transformation. The quiet companionship of the Corgis. Meanwhile, behind the iron gates, life at Royal Lodge carries on in small, ordinary ways. Sarah Ferguson continues to write books and attend charity events. The Corgis, Muke and Sandy, wander the lawns, chasing butterflies in the same gardens once walked by Queen Elizabeth II. Neighbors sometimes catch glimpses of Prince Andrew driving through the estate, waving politely as he passes the guards. To the world, he is a man surrounded by scandal. But at home, he's simply a son, a father, and a man trying to hold on to the last bit of stability he has left. Maybe that's the real heart of this story. Not power or politics, but the human desire to belong somewhere, even when everything else fades. The spirit of the Queen Mother. If the walls of Royal Lodge could speak, they would remember the Queen Mother's laughter, her kindness, and her deep love for the place. She once said that a house, no matter how grand, means nothing without warmth and family. For decades, she gave that warmth freely to her guests, her staff, and her grandchildren. Now, her spirit lingers in the silence. Some say you can almost feel it. A gentle presence that watches over the estate, saddened by its decline, but proud of its legacy. Perhaps she would have wanted her grandsons to find peace, to remember that family comes before property, and that love endures longer than any lease. The final reflection. As dusk settles over Windsor Great Park, the last rays of sunlight touch the old stone walls of Royal Lodge. From afar, it still looks magnificent, golden and timeless, surrounded by fields and ancient oaks. But up close, you can see the cracks, the wear, the signs of time's quiet victory. The story of Royal Lodge is not just about a house. It's about what happens when history and humanity collide, when royal blood meets real-world consequences. It's the story of a monarchy trying to modernize without losing its soul. It's the story of a brother who won't give up his home, even when the world turns against him. And it's the story of a building that refuses to die, because it carries the memories of generations who shaped Britain's history. In the end, Royal Lodge remains both beautiful and broken, a symbol of the British monarchy itself, grand, flawed, proud, and enduring. Whether it stands another century or falls into dust, its legacy will outlive its walls. Because Royal Lodge isn't just part of royal history, it is royal history.